Good afternoon, YouTube! And, well, I know I'm late, but Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so I want to talk to you guys about Apple Silicon today. We're going to bash them because, well, they need it. They deserve it, after all. We did Windows. It's only fair we do Mac, right? Okay, so let's look at negativity here. Drive prices are absolutely freaking ludicrous for storage. RAM prices, absolutely ludicrous. But what's worse than all of that put together is the processing power. The one thing they're staying consistent with, it would seem, is in a 12-core CPU, you are going to get 8 performance cores and 4 efficiencies. Now, at least that's a good thing, because you're going to need 8 performance cores if you want to play with the big boys for AAA gaming properly. Okay, now they're 24-core that they have. That gives you 16 performance and 8 efficiencies. Now, my take on this, now this is an M2 Studio. They don't have an M4 yet. But the M4 is the same thing with the 12-core CPU. Okay, it's going to have the same performance cores and efficiencies. But the rest of the Macs that are non-Pro chipped are crippled. Okay, the 8 cores, it's a 4x4. The 10 cores, well, you're going to have 4 performance and 6 efficiencies. This is actually really bad. You know, Apple Silicon has been great since the M1. One of the biggest things we found was that video editing, 3D rendering, all that crap was extremely well accelerated. And that was really great. But the big oversight is we also got scammed at the same time because, see, low-powered apps like browsers, calculators, crap like that, it doesn't need power cores. It doesn't go after them. It just uses the efficiency cores, which sip power, okay? Performance cores, they draw a bit more power, all right? But the thing is you either have an equal split or you have a very unequal split because, well, they just chose to have efficiency cores involved and they never should have done that. Could you imagine an M1, like my Mini here, which is an 8-core, if that was truly an 8-core processor? Like a real 8-core processor, so performance cores. You imagine how wonderful that thing would be to game on? How wonderful it would be for video editing and all the other jazz that Macs are superior in over everything else on the planet? You imagine how much better that would be if it was 8 performance cores. It would be absolutely insane, okay? So, but Apple said, we don't want to give them insanity. They're not ready for it. And besides, we need to bleed them for a while for their money. And this, of course, has shown that Apple has actually gone against themselves. Look at how much money they hemorrhaged in the M2 development and the M3s. And now we're about to see M4s hemorrhage the company even more. Now, Apple's a multi-trillion-dollar company. They can afford some losses. It saves them on their taxes every year when they hemorrhage money. They're smart in that sense, but stupid in another because, well, they're only hurting themselves in the long run on market share. They're losing market share, okay? Now, you can't survive off mobile phones and iPads, Apple. It's not going to help you to survive as a company. You may have taken over a good percentage of the planet with that crap, but there's also computers out there, and sorry to say, you need to produce real computers here, okay? And that's what you're not doing. You're not giving us the goods. You say this, but when it comes down to the synthetic tests and the real-world tests, we're finding out that Apple is lying to us about the performance of these machines, literally lying to us. Now, this makes people decide, should I continue to trust Apple? Now, as far as our identity protection with security, not getting hacked too easily, barely ever hear of even a virus ever happening either. I mean, there are good points to Apple, okay? There really are a lot of good points. But is there enough good points to warrant that we should still keep supporting a company that continuously makes basically crappy computers now, okay? And I say this as a Mac head myself. I love Apple computers, and I prefer them as my first and foremost choice because of the video editing and the music side for me, okay? Gaming sucks dirt, okay? There's not that many games that even I can run unless they're made mostly cheesy games. And I don't want an Apple Arcade subscription just so I can play a bunch of cheesy crap. I don't want to download a bunch of cheesy, crappy games, period. Okay? I want good games. I want 3D shoot 'em up stuff. I want sniper games. I want the big action games. You know, I want Skyrim. I want, you know, Cyberpunk. I want the whole Far Cry series, not just a couple, right? I get them all on the PC though. Okay? So I have a Windows computer to play games on because Apple sucks, and their M4 chips are really sucky too. All right? I mean, let's take a look. The iMac, for example. Okay? Now, we're never seeing an iMac Pro again. We have to grow up. And we're also never seeing boot camp with Windows again because, wow, that would be unfair to the ARM world of Windows, and we would destroy them completely because the amount of performance we would be able to gain would be so exponential that the ARM Windows world would never catch up. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we do have to have some fair play, I guess. But their 8-core CPU is the same as every 8-core CPU. It's a 4x4 split, okay? 4 performance, 4 efficiency. Now, to me, this just means I get a little bit more speed, but is that speed worth the investment? Well, is that speed going to get my video done in 1 minute instead of 3? Because if it's not, then it ain't worth it, okay? So, and then we have the efficiency side, okay? It weakens the computer. It prevents it from being a even half decent basic gaming platform. Okay, so it's kind of like, well. So then we look at the 10-core CPUs. Again, 4 performance, 6 efficiency. What's wrong with 6 performance and 4 efficiency if you're going to put efficiency cores in? But either way, the efficiency cores are destroying and crippling Macs in the gaming world and in their own video world. Now, there are PCs out there, and although we do know that PCs suck dirt for the end product, okay? Doesn't matter how you look at it, there's a reason why Apple is king of the planet when it comes to all this video and photography stuff and everything else. They're second to none, right? And the PC world will never get that, all right? At least not as long as I'm alive and the millennials are alive, okay? We'll all be dead and gone, and I'm sorry, Apple will still be on top, at least for whoever knows how long. But they're not helping themselves stay anywhere if they don't straighten up their act, okay? They will fall, and they will fall mightily, okay, if they do not fix the problems, all right? Now, again, the 10-core CPU, it's 4 performance, 6 efficiency. What do we need efficiency cores for? Because 90% of the time when I'm doing stuff on my Mac, I'm actually in the performance cores because I'm exporting a video, I'm compressing a video, and I'm surfing. And my browser is supposed to be an efficiency core program, but it gets put into the performance cores whenever I'm using a high demand app that requires performance. So the efficiency cores get shut down, put into idle mode, and the program gets shoved into that area instead. And I've done enough extensive testing to find this out, to figure it out. Because I'm kind of like wondering, okay, why is it that when I run my browser and iMovie, my export time, which should be about 3 minutes, maybe even 4 minutes, is now going upwards to 10 or 12? Well, it's because I have another app in the performance area that's sucking the power away. Okay? And browsers do suck a fair amount of power, but they're still supposed to be an efficiency core app, which they actually are, as long as that's the only app you're running that is going to be doing a job at that time in the efficiency area. But even the efficiency cores can get bogged down by multiple apps that are efficiency only. And therefore those cores will stay on. But as soon as you launch a performance core app, all that crap gets shoved into the performance cores and slows everything down massively. And I do mean massively, okay? I mean, it is nuts, all right? And like I said, I've done a lot of extensive testing lately. Plus, I've done more and more research on the M4s and finding out more and more. And, well, let me put it to you this way. If you want to play the new Cyberpunk, you have 2 options. You can spend a crap load of money on an M4 Pro chip, okay, whether it's a MacBook Pro or whether it's the Mac Mini Pro, or you can buy an M2 jacked up and spend less money and get way more cores on both sides, CPU and GPU, and more RAM and better performance, and just go to a Studio M2 chip. Because it seems that the M2, although there are areas where it can lack a little bit over an M4, gaming, it seems to be doing exceedingly well in gaming in comparison to even the Pro chip. So I'm kind of sitting here going, well, I don't really want to buy my next computer as an M2 Studio because it's already on the market for 2 years. It'll be going into 3 years by the time I can get one this coming year, right, for 2025. And I'm like, it does save me a lot of money though. But the problem is, instead of being good for 10 years, I'm down to 7 years left, right? And it's kind of like, well, I don't know. I'd rather see an M4 Studio, to be honest, and then buy the Pro version of that, right? Because then they would get rid of the M2s, okay, which they would. They'd be all in the refurbished store, okay? So you wouldn't be able to buy a brand new one again, is the idea. And I'd get an even better system in an M4 Studio, hopefully. But I ain't holding my breath at this stage. So why would we go for a Pro? Well, here's the thing. If we go into, let's go look at the Mac Mini. Now, the Mac Mini does come in a crippled M4 chip. Okay, so again, too many efficiencies, not enough performance. But when you buy into the Pro chip, it'll be the exact same chip in the MacBook Pro laptop. All right. Now, you can spend a lot of money if you want, but okay, the 12 core in the M4 Pro chip in the Mini is the same chip as in the laptop. It is going to be 8 performance cores for efficiency. Again, we got to ditch these efficiency cores. They're killing us. The CPU, the GPU, 16 core, 24 gigs of memory. You're not playing Cyberpunk quite yet, but it's still $1,900. How much do we got to spend to actually get into AAA gaming and survive for a couple of years? Well, we need 64 gigs of RAM, and that's going to cost $750 right now on top of that price. We just spent more on a Mini than we could have on a Studio, and the Studio is the better machine. However, we also need storage. Now, if you are like me, you can use an external Thunderbolt case. This is Thunderbolt 4, which is pretty quick, and I have Thunderbolt 4 cases that will run near 4,000 megabytes per second with the correct drive inside and on a Thunderbolt 4 bus. Right now I'm Thunderbolt 3 and I'm getting 3,100 megabytes per second on my fastest drive that I built. So you can go external, put in whatever drive you want, and save a crap load of money. Don't pay for their storage unless you absolutely need to. But if you are a person that puts a lot of programs on, and your programs at least are in your main drive, you do need storage. And you will be paying blood money for that, for the internal stuff. But again, I recommend not, okay? So just build your own external. You got 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 2 Type-Cs, and you can create a boot drive on an external drive. It takes the internal offline, which is fine. You don't need it for anything anyways if you're using an external large drive. And then you can put more drives onto, or whatever the hell you need to hook up to the damn thing. There are a lot of ports on this Mini Pro, which I do appreciate. Okay? However, we are still looking at $2,600. And that just gets us into a 12 by 16 core with half a terabyte of storage and 64 gigs of memory. Okay? And of course, like I said, your MacBook Pros, your MacBooks are going to cost you even more money because they are laptops. They will cost you a lot more money. And here's the thing. If you're into heavy-duty video editing, you better be on a desktop over a laptop, because the laptops will thermal throttle, the fans will go whee, and then your computer slows down even more. We've seen this happen time and time again with Mac laptops. They slow down to a snot rag when the fans are going whee, because they can't draw in any cool air to cool off the circuitry. All these fans are doing is taking the hot air out, and that's not cooling anything properly, okay? Not to mention, the fan pitch of the blades for air movement at any speed are the wrong pitch of blades. Their engineers should know this, that if they're working with a system that doesn't have a cross ventilation system to draw in air, to expel air properly, well, guess what? You need to change your fan pitch blade. And you should anyways, even if you did have it, because the idea is you want to have lower fan speeds and more air movement, okay? And that saves on battery power. When you're going whee, it's sucking your battery dry. Now, granted, I will say I appreciate one thing about Apple Silicon and laptops. Doesn't matter if you plugged in or on battery power, absolutely zero performance loss. That I like, okay? I gotta give kudos where kudos are due, okay? Now, if we go into the Mac here, we're going to go to the Studio. Let's see what we can get for the same 2,600 bucks, okay? So right off the hop, we're going to get a 12-core CPU, right, which is going to have the same split, 8 performance, 4 efficiency, but we get the benefit of a 30-core GPU. That's even better. And we're going to get 32 gigs of RAM as opposed to 24, okay? Still not enough RAM to properly play Cyberpunk full out, and that's still on medium graphics 1080p. However, we do have 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, so we have more ports, 2 USB-Cs up front, plus 2 USB-As, etc., and 10 gigabit Ethernet already there, okay? And all this stuff runs Apple Intelligence, by the way, even the M1s do. However, I would put my money probably into a Max chip, okay, in that case. Now, I think 64 gigs of memory is actually where we're supposed to be at realistically, because when it comes to the Mac OS, right now we're at 6.83 gigs for the OS. Now, if we do get the same kind of a spec line on the Apple Silicon version of the Cyberpunk, you're talking 16 gigs there for the app and another 8 gigs worth of video memory. And of course, we know that it's CPU and GPU all combined here. So yeah, it's, and I'm not sure if unified memory is really faster than video memory. But whether it is or not is not the case. You need video memory, okay, to play this game right. Now, I have a 4 gigs NVIDIA 3050 in my PC with an 8-core processor that is a pure 8 cores, okay, of performance. And I have 64 gigs of RAM. I still need 8 gigs of video to get this game running properly at 1080p medium graphics to get about 70 frames per second. And that's on the first version of Cyberpunk. It shares system RAM with my video card. But what it does is the system RAM is slower than my video card memory, and it has to slow down the video card memory to match my system RAM so it doesn't choke and freeze the system. So basically, I still get my 8 gigs of video and then some. Okay, and I can go to different resolutions. I can go to different, quality modes, and and I can even get up to 100 FPS of that game on my PC, and that's the first version of Cyberpunk. Okay, but we need 64 gigs of RAM to have lots of RAM left over for other stuff, because on the PC I'm at 10.8 gigs of RAM just for the OS to the desktop, as opposed to the Mac OS at 6.83 to the desktop. We don't get any of this RAM back, and there is no gamer mode anymore, okay? Plus 16, okay? Plus it wants an additional 4 from my video card, okay? So that would be 30.8, but in the case of a Mac, you're going to have a little bit different. Now, under current Sequoia, 6.83 plus 16 for the app, plus another additional 8 gigs to get you just playing it, and we don't know what the frame rate's going to be like, but that's 30.83 gigs. 32 gigs of RAM ain't going to cut it, baby, because there's always that plus or minus stuff that the games use, and you want to avoid swap. And I guarantee you, if all you got is 32 gigs, you are going to hit swap during gameplay. Okay? So you want that 64 gigs. But that's going to be $3,200 for the M2, which is a lot more appealing computer, and it's definitely going to play the games pretty good, okay, and with some really decent FPS. We're still not going to get top level here, but top level we're still not going to achieve. We got a long way to go before we get that far. However, we can still play games in 2 and 4K resolutions, tweak other things, and still get fairly acceptable gameplay. Not as great as we'd love to have, but we can get it acceptable. As long as efficiency cores exist in Macs, we will stay crippled. We will stay crippled not only in gaming with AAA games that come out for the Mac, but we will stay continually crippled with parallels and crossover playing games, and we will still continue to stay crippled when it comes to video editing, graphic arts and design, 3D rendering, CGI, doing AI stuff, okay, certain AI stuff. We are going to remain as crippled machines, okay, because of efficiency cores. We need all performance core performance. We need more RAM, but at market prices. We need more storage. We'd be happy to buy and leave it internal and put up with soldered on crap if it was at market price. And also then, therefore, also reducing the cost of the machines a little bit more would be really nice. I mean, the only thing Apple really did that I thought was very impressive that I saw this year was with the MacBook Air. Okay? And with that, we're talking the M2, because M1s are no longer available unless they have some in the refurbished store. But they do have the same split issue where it's 4 and 4 for the 8. But they did give us 16 gigs of unified memory. That was a benefit. Now, on the base model, of course, they on the 13-inch, they went 8 by 8 by 16 by 256 for $1,300. You are still paying $1,300 for less RAM previous, even on an M1. Okay, so at least with the M2, they did up their ante because, well, they had no choice, to be honest. It wasn't their option, because if they want to keep making more and more powerful operating systems, they have to give us more base RAM. Or nobody's going to buy their machines if they just run in virtual memory all the time. Because 8 gigs is nothing anymore. It is absolutely disgust. Yet Apple has a lot of certified refurbished Macs on their website that only have 8 gigs of RAM. And I would say don't even touch those things, because you can't upgrade them. They're pre-owned machines, and you cannot upgrade the RAM. The only time you can upgrade RAM with Apple is when you custom buy from their website and you order a machine the way you want it. But if you're just buying even off their website for this is the base level, that's what you get. You can't change later. You can't upgrade anything later, right? And we know there are people out there that have been doing this and that and the other thing. DOS dudes involved, you know, for upgrading storage, but not RAM. You can't figure the RAM out yet. But that is not up for discussion. It is buying a computer, period. The end user is forbidden to upgrade RAM and storage, okay? We could go back to it, and it will not hurt the performance of the computers. Apple will try and convince you that it will, but it won't, okay? You can still have your CPU, your GPU, and your neural engine on that chip, but you put the RAM so the user can upgrade it and the storage, you're not going to lose any performance. Maybe 2.5%, 3% tops, which adds up to nothing, okay, in the real world. It absolutely adds up to nothing. But they don't want to do that because they lose money. Because right now they got us all by the short and curlies with RAM and storage. And as long as they do that, they can keep banging us for a pile of money at the door, and we're going to have to pay it if we want it, right? They don't want to play nice. All right, and because they don't want to play nice, they do hemorrhage sales a lot every year. All right, now we don't see anything here in a 10 core in the M3 13-inch or even in the 15-inch. We do see a little bit of improvement on GPU cores, but it's the CPUs, they're all the same. They're all a 4x4 split, which is absolutely, utterly pointless. Okay, it's nothing but a crippler. So, but we do have a lot of adoring good points about Mac, as you know. They are awesome for video editing, desktop publishing, all that other stuff they're good at. As we've reiterated like diarrhea on the channel many, many times, Mac has their strong point and their industry standard stuff. But they could be so much better machines, and they would really, really give the PC world a run for their money if Apple would give us the same core counts, but all performance core level machines. Just that part alone is going to blow the doors off the PC world big time, especially in the gaming aspect. When we start playing games, we are going to really be able to play games really well, because you need 8 cores nowadays to do gaming, especially heavy-duty games like Cyberpunk. You got to have a performing machine if you really want to play that game really, really well, and especially when you want higher level graphics. I mean, I turn on as much as ray tracing, even with my settings. I'll go from 70 down to 40 FPS just for ray tracing. So I can't even use ray tracing on that game. I can use ray tracing on other games and not have it really affect me, but they're not as heavy duty games, but they still use ray tracing, right? Macs use ray tracing now too, which is kind of nice. But again, it can be for you or against you depending on the process you're doing, among other things. But if Apple really wants to get business going, they obviously got to take all these bad points we've mentioned and turn them into good beneficial points. You know, I'm not saying Apple should take over the world, because I don't think they ever will with computers. At least not as long as they keep this garbage up. They're not going to get much further. They're going to keep losing market share if they do not straighten up their act. Because right now, it is not looking good when the only viable options are a Pro M4 Mini and a Pro MacBook are the only two chipsets other than the Ultra chip in the MacBook Pro. But again, that's kind of a up for debate chip right now. But either way, you need that if you want to play the heavy-duty AAA titles. Okay, I mean, that's the only way it's going to work out for a benefit, right? And that's a lot of money to ask of people just to play those games. And I'll tell you right now, people can go out and buy PC laptops for far less money and play the same games natively on the PC for far less money. Okay, Apple, how bad you want into the gaming? Apple, how bad you want more market share? You need to make some changes and make them really super fast, or you will tank. Okay, and I really don't want to see Apple tank, but they are tanking themselves. They are on their own self-destructive path right now, and it is going to take them down if they don't fix problems. At least they gave us more RAM in base machines, fine, but that's not enough. Efficiency cores have to go, and we need more processing cores. We need better video core systems, and we really could use some dedicated video RAM, okay, for the video bus, because that too being integrated is causing some hindrance. Good for the video editors, but lousy for the gaming, okay? And you can only rewrite code so far to make it so good with integrated crap. And yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to fix some problems here for sure. All right. Now, I'm not saying, you know, give us back the access to change our RAM and our drives ourselves. I don't care. What I care about is the price needs to come down to market values. What I care about is, you know, if you're going to keep pulling this crap off, the prices of the computers need to drop exponentially big. Otherwise, start giving us what we deserve. What you say is 8 cores is 8 performance cores, 12 cores, 12 performance, 24, 32. Whatever those processor counts are, they're real performance cores. And the GPU has got to be better too, okay? It's got to get improved, especially for gaming if you want to compete. You want to play with the big boys? Put on your big boy panties, Apple. Get in the game or get out. That's all there is to it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I probably missed a few things for sure, but we did cover some good and bad points, obviously. And, well, we'll see how things go with Apple in the next while. I just hope they do come out with an M4 Studio, because I'd rather put my money into that over a Mini Pro, because I am not buying a laptop. Okay, there's no way. So, anyway, see ya.